I have an illustrious group of individuals here. And what you guys are going to talk about is what is really needed to transform testing. So Jane, I'm going to hand it to you. Good luck. We'll be watching.
Good. Okay. Hi, I'm Jane Macneil. I'm the Director of Enterprise Deployments here at Tricentis. And I'm really excited to introduce this panel here today. My team is generally engaged with strategic projects that are longer running. Like everybody in the customer success department, we're really focused on what? Volume?
You want to go for that slide.
Oh, no, we're good. My team is really focused on developing customer stories. And one of those stories was something that Tatiana Salazar had presented for us at Accelerate San Francisco. And it was really exciting because I had Sandra Baker from Vantiv, now WorldPlay, sitting behind me. And so she's listening to all of the successes and the struggles and the things that she's challenged with. And Sandra starts to get really anxious, saying, oh my gosh, we have so much advice to give this woman. I really need to talk to her. And it gave me chills. I was really excited to see our customers developing this community and reaching out beyond the boundaries of their own companies to give everybody else guidance. We've certainly had Anne speaking for us at Accelerate in the past and also today. And I'm very excited that she's here to work with us. So Anne's program at ExxonMobil has been historically very significant for Tricentis. She was at the vanguard of when we started deploying Tosca in the States. She was a crucial sponsor for us. She's taught us a lot. She's made our product better, yeah? She's made our consulting services better. And she was also kind of the brain power behind this really important co-innovation around test architect training, which is a program that we've carried forward all the way through to Experian, where we have Tatiana Salazar's team has developed 2 of the first client test architects that have recently graduated from that certification program. So it's nice to see these transitions of stories, right? Tatiana's team are my 4-minute milers. They're the first people to scale Everest. They had perfect conditions, and they executed flawlessly. And it was extremely exciting to be a part of that. They've set the bar that I hold all of the enterprise deployments to, which now includes Amber Wood's group at Tyson. Tyson is tackling one of the most ambitious digital transformation that we've ever seen or we've ever been a part of. And so we're really excited to have you here today. All right. So without further ado, Anne, you developed this concept around demand architects. Why did you come up with this idea? Why was that important, and how did it work for you?
Yeah, so demand architects, when we were starting with our transformation from the scripting tool into Tosca, we had a lot of requests coming in. They wanted to get onto the model-based tool, so much so that the demand, the requests that came in, really need to get cleansed by an architect so that we would understand the scope. Too many of the business contacts came in and they just wanted to convert the old to the new without doing any proper analysis. And so the demand architect was critical in helping us understand not only what to automate, but also in explaining to the business contacts what they should be automating.
And there's also the scale and the scope of Exxon. It's a huge global company, and so you had to have the coverage and you had to have exposure to make sure that the tool is adopted correctly. And it seemed like that was pretty successful to have regional demand centers for all of those groups.
Well, and I mentioned earlier that sometimes we work with creatures that we don't like snakes and rats and things like that. So no, we had the business people in all of the different regions coming to us with, I want, wah, wah, wah. And so yeah, our demand architects, they developed some good interpersonal skills, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. So we've started to see Tatiana stood up some demand architects within our own group. What were the things that you looked for within your own team, or what were the things that you trained people on to handle these types of conversations?
Okay, I would say that I started by assessing what is their career path and their passion, what do they want to do. there were two people in particular that were totally interested in getting into the architect path and help other teams that partner with us build their infrastructure and onboard with Tosca. So that was kind of the profile that I was looking to. Also, both of them are highly technical, so for them to onboard was pretty easy.
Yeah, they took to the tool like ducks in water. It was great. They were already initiating their own demand sessions while we were still doing the services engagement, which was great.
Exactly.
Yeah, that transition happened very quickly. So Amber, you are working with developing citizen analyst automators. Can you tell us a little bit about that concept and how it applies to testing?
Yes, so we at Tyson, we've had other scripting tools that we've used for automation in the past, and those have not really been adopted well because they really haven't gotten the adoption within each of the teams. So like democratizing citizen data scientists or citizen integrators, we've recently bought a tool called SnapLogic. We have the same concept with Tosca. So Tosca is allowing our business analysts to enter into automation in an easy, fast way that will get us away from what we had before, which was a lot of scripting. And our goal is to get heavy adoption in the automation space.
Good. All right, so we have a lot of talk about DevOps and Agile. There's a lot of focus around this. Every client that we've ever engaged with has said that they are at some point in their Agile or their DevOps journey. Can you guys describe, maybe starting with Anne, where you are at Exxon and how you're supporting that?
So at ExxonMobil, we've definitely gone into our digital transformation. Every business unit has been asked to come up with a digital transformation plan. And that, of course, goes straight into continuous testing. So where we do have a number of stable teams established, I would say across the organization, we probably only have a 20% penetration going into Agile at this point, where we have the stable teams that have been established. The projects have been running Agile for quite a while, moving out of waterfall. But I'll call it the big deal during the 2018 year has been embedding quality engineers into stable teams. We've had quality engineers embedded in projects for quite a while, but never into the quote-unquote support organization. And that has turned out to be quite fruitful, and it has greatly assisted with getting quality embedded from the left to the right and then back around again.
Good. Are there certain projects that you look for to partner with on that?
Anybody who has money and willing to pay for it.
That's pretty good. It's true, right?
Follow the money.
And how about you, Amber?
Yeah, so we're kind of a mix of waterfall and agile. However, we recently got a new CTO, Scott Spradley, and so he really took the ceiling off of everything at Tyson Foods. Before, agile was kind of a four-letter word. It was not allowed. Open source was not allowed. Cloud was not allowed. And so we have a lot of teams who traditionally know waterfall. We still have some waterfall. But we have some people who are hobbyist, agile, DevOps people. We call it DevSecOps because we can't forget security. And so they were really jazzed about the fact that the ceiling had been lifted. And so we have many Scrum teams that are working. I can't remember exactly how Tosca breaks it apart, but systems of record versus the engagement apps.
Yep.
So on the engagement app side, we have Scrum teams running, we have Kanban running in support teams, and now we're kind of tackling the system of record area. So we have a competency center where we have our quality team, and they'll take care of the end-to-end quality strategy evangelist for all of the quality tools. And then we have embedded testers inside of each of our Scrum teams.
Good. So what was the resistance at the beginning? Why did it take, a change of face to bring this in?
I think it was really a leadership.
Okay.
Our previous CIO, that was not an option. Package software, building custom applications, that was the mantra. We had just recently built a major data center. Scott came in and said, "Why did you do that?" And so right now we're on a major, transformation to the cloud as well.
Yeah. Okay. And Tatiana?
So in my case, I would say that we have a mixture, just like what Amber was describing. And there's like several flavors that I can describe. So I have the pure waterfall type of project. I have a team that came with SAFE. So we just onboarded with that methodology. And there is the most interesting for me is this new team that's onboarding with us, and they are not only asking us to give us all the Tosca onboarding services, but they want us to show them how to get into the agile type of work.
Yeah.
Now, specifically with DevOps, I think Experian is still struggling to adopt 100% DevOps, but there is a big push to get that in, so we're still walking on that path.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I don't think we've seen a client where it's just been 100% across the board. It's always been this mix, this agile-ish, this, we're starting, well, we still have these other obligations. So it does put your teams under quite a lot of pressure. I mean, they're spending quite a bit of their time trying to convince people and to bring them along the path. There's a lot of skepticism. So what do you do to support those teams, and how do you make it easier for them to actually make sure that they are successful?
Hire the right people.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
So, no, in all seriousness, a human being, a person, they have to have an attitude that allows change to be positive, all right? And in all honesty, when it comes to people that we ask to help with the transformations, they truly have to be handpicked. Not everybody can lead a transformation. We've even established a team to do nothing but lead in transformation, and we found some of the people that we put on that team initially that it wasn't the right match, and they were unhappy. So, okay, you move on and we'll bring somebody else in. And that's what we do from a leadership perspective, is we've got to make sure we've got the right people who can lead the change. And in all, I mean, they have to be calm about change. You can't have a radical preaching change. You've got to have somebody that can kind of nurture the change. And again, from a leadership position, you know that change is something that has to be nurtured.
Right.
It can't be shoved or pushed. It's kind of got to get a bit of an organic lift to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say with Amber, with the leadership team at Tyson, there's certainly quite a lot of executive sponsorship, and even Tatiana, with your core businesses at Experian, there's a lot of momentum behind that. So that must make it a little bit easier to get things pushed through. Do you have some success stories or some examples that you'd like to share of where teams have started or things that they've identified that they're working on?
As far as DevOps? Yeah, I think, if I look at, your question before was around agile versus waterfall, and since we're all kind of in a mix right now, how do you handle that? And I think what I've seen is most everyone here is in some form or fashion in a mix. And really, I think the goal for us is to make progress. And so every team, you have to, I think everyone that's in a leadership role needs to understand enough. We talked earlier in some of the sessions about acronyms and knowing what they mean, and people not understanding what CI and CD means. So I think as a leader, it's up to you to go research that, understand it, have a vision for it, and then empower your teams to kind of work within it. I always tell our teams who are living we have a big project going on that's both agile and waterfall. And I just tell them to do the right thing. Just if you have to dig your heels in, dig your heels in. A lot of times in waterfall projects, they end in these war rooms. And what I like to relate that to is, what is a war room? A war room ends up being really an agile way of working. And so we just, if we have waterfall projects, we try to work as agile as we can within those.
Yeah. And we do have a great war room at Tyson.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty proud of it with Rob. So are there ways that you track progress against these programs? Are there metrics that you guys look at consistently, or are there gut feels and checks that you kind of keep your pulse point on? Maybe.
So I guess, from a metric perspective, yes, we still count things. Anybody who thinks that DevOps and Agile is not governing is wrong, and we've heard that several times today. So you still have to count things, you still have to measure things, you still have to make sure that you are progressing along a path. So what is a path? A path can be into Agile, a path can be into automation, a path can be into improving requirements. All of these things need to be measured. But you only measure things that you can take action against, right? So if I have a goal to get 80% of my business critical business functions automated, then I'm going to start counting them. That's a critical part of any change, is to set that goal, the end in mind, put in some markers as to what you need to do to get to the end. And it comes back to the definition of done. I think historically we've been very poor at defining what is done, and locking in on it. That's another aspect,
Right.
I think, of a problem that we've had historically.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I have an interesting example for that. So from the beginning of this year, we changed completely how we measure our goals, and we changed it to what we call the 90-day goals. So we're constantly in this 90-day challenge. So what I do is that I establish a set of goals that will be the standard goals for those 90 days. And after we all agree that those are the goals, I set a higher bar, and I'll tell this is the high-performing goal. And so, of course, that's how people start getting motivated to actually achieve the higher bar, because the standard goals are not enough for them. Because we just started Task, I cannot tell you that I have lots and lots of metrics, but at least we try to measure how much we have automated in the new repository versus what we had previous to that.
Good.
And so for us, we also kind of look at how many test cases and the risk coverage, but I think the goal that's most important to us is, because we are on this SAP S4 journey and a large transformation project into the cloud, the key for us is adoption. So we have done a lot of automation for the Scrum teams. We're in the process of now kind of teaching them, and then eventually they'll fish on their own. But the big gut feel for me is getting teams to adopt. So when the team A over here and the team B over here, team B's leaving at a decent hour of a night, and team A is still sitting there, and team A goes, "Why are you leaving so early? Don't you have all that testing to do?" And team B says, "Well, I've got all my testing automated. I'm going to push a button and I'm going to go home for the night." And team A is going to be over here, working all night, which we've all done, right, in a grind. So that, to me, is what success is going to look like.
Okay. All right, so I want to ask you a couple of Tosca specifics. Amber, we'll start with you. Why did you choose Tosca and Tricentis?
So I touched on it a little bit before, but at Tyson Foods, we were a born analog company. We're going through a major digital transformation. We are moving to SAP S4 in the cloud. We were not happy with our automation tool that we had at the time. And so Scott Spradley, our CTO, he said, "Hey, let's go try to help our people. At the end of these big projects, that's when people, have these capes, and they put on capes and try to do all kinds of heroics. So let's give them the help that they need at the end of the project. So it was really to help our people, and we wanted a great automation tool that would be adopted, that would be scriptless, and ultimately that's why we chose Tosca.
That's exciting. Okay. And Anne, do you have a favorite success story or a favorite lesson learned that's come from the
I
program?
really wanted to answer the question why we chose Tosca.
Oh, yeah,
Can I
go
answer
for
that?
it.
Is Mark Beauvais in here? Is Mark Beauvais? Well, that's not the reason.
Oh man, that just made cocktail hours so much better.
So what was the other question?
What's your favorite success story or your favorite lesson learned from this? From working with us?
Okay, yeah, I can do that. So what warmed my heart is that probably 6 months after we really started getting into automation, one of the business COE managers, okay, called me up and said, wow, where did this come from? And then he went on to say, and I want to put it in the hands of all of my business process experts, okay? And I said, well, we can do that. And he goes, yeah, for the first time, we can control our own automation. And he goes, because automation is there to help us make sure that, again, business critical functionality works after a change has been applied. And I was like, wow. You have just made my day. And then that actually started a competition amongst downstream, upstream, and chemicals, which was pretty fun too. Then everybody wanted to get on that bandwagon.
I like that.
So no, honestly, that's what really set me off with, whoa, we've really shifted the corporation at this point. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I would say that one of my favorite success stories is, so one of the products that we support had a team totally dedicated to it. And they took years to build, to start up a framework, an automation framework, which was at all ready. And we get on board with Tosca. The Tricentis guys come in. We completely, they worked for 2 weeks with us. By day 3, there wasn't anything else to learn. So we started to do scenarios. And by month 2, we were already ready with all the smoke tests.
Yeah.
And hearing everybody saying, especially the ones that had been longer with the company and working in the automation framework, the previous one saying like, this would have taken me 1 week, and now I did it in 2 hours.
Yeah.
That is, to me, a critical success story that makes everybody happy and encourages everybody to keep using the tool.
So when we went down to Costa Rica for, when John Rodriguez and I went down for training, they were just tearing through all of the content, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They were like, why are you guys making such a fuss? You're making such a big deal. And just immediately ramped up very, very quickly. So yeah, it was a lot of fun for us too, especially just being in Costa Rica. I highly recommend it. For sure. So what do you guys have next for Tosca? What's on your agenda?
I'm ready to move the maintenance of automated tests into our configurer and developer hands, meaning that it already exists. They should be able to maintain it at the time that they're also touching the code. And I think in order to get somebody to the point of maintaining an existing test case, that educational process could go pretty quick. I'm calling them Automation Specialist Light, okay? So that's kind of what's next. We've got about 4,000, maybe even closer to 5,000 test cases that have been automated. We're just going to continue to do that. We're going to get into API.
Good.
Okay, that's on the way, and I believe if my number one is in the room, I can say that we do have orchestrated virtualization on our list of
Nice.
things to do without promising too much. Okay. We're a great balance for each other.
It's good. I like that you brought up the concept around a maintenance team, because for so long at Exxon it's been build and build and build and accommodate all of these programs, and there's all this demand that there was a point where you wanted to say, okay, stop, we have to make sure that what we have built continues to be useful for us. And it does take eyes on it. It does take people that are actually caring. Are they going to triage those and bring them back to the business, or are you expecting that the business is going to be responsible?
The triage is happening now.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. No. Today, when there is a defect, we take a look at it, and then if we decide it's a real defect, then absolutely we're pulling the business in to help us and help debug, right, what the problem really is.
Yeah. I think it's something that we mentioned probably day one with our teams. We say you want to start thinking about the future and make sure that this is always sustainable for everybody.
Absolutely.
So Amber, what do you have on your agenda?
Yeah, so Rob West and his team, when we first started, before we started looking at automation, he was looking at a complete end-to-end quality strategy. And so he'll continue to look at that. I mean, we have to finish our big transformation project with the automation tool, but we have several tools on the roadmap to retire, and we want to get to those retirements. So one of our next big transformations is a large data and analytics platform project. So we're looking at the BI testing tool as well as some of the load testing tools.
Right.
And we were already looking at QA Symphony before the acquisition. So we'll continue to kind of get all the verticals of our strategy filled.
Absolutely. Good.
I would say I am on the same path as Amber. So actually, BI is very logical for us to acquire. We just needed to get into a project that required it. So next week, the POC will be held. Also, the next logical step is to get rid of the test management tool and get into the Tricentis tool. And finally, whatever is needed by the different teams that partnered with us, exploratory testing is something that I see coming pretty soon.
Yeah.
But I would say that's the path we're heading. Also, we're working with the flood team
Yes.
to get it working for us.
It's good. Yeah. We've actually already started using exploratory very lightly at Tyson, just as an easy mechanism, because there's such a time crunch there, and most of their resources are so fully occupied with this major program that it just made sense to just give them something that was nice and easy to bring in, and it's a very light touch. So,
And exploratories, there's some benefits of it that on top of just capturing what they're doing.
Right.
I think we're finding places where we can use that in training as well.
absolutely, yeah. We almost see that, invariably it always goes to the training and then process documentation pieces. Yep. So before I go to crowd questions, do you guys have advice for each other at the various stages of the deployments that you're in?
I want to hear from Anne.
Yeah.
We're babies.
We're burning
so, Anne, you can give us your advice.
So as I look back over these 3 years, all right, one of our biggest lessons learned, and I'll actually say something positive about Mark Beauvais.
We'll never hear the end of it, though.
Is he listened, all right? And so whoever you work with from Tricentis, I think they've all been to good listening school, all right? I really do. And so keep talking to your Tricentis contacts about what you need. So that was probably one of our biggest benefits, okay, just from a relationship perspective. When it comes to the tool itself, make sure that you do have trained people in the tool, okay? And you can't just take an architect training and become an architect. It takes experience. And so if anybody tells you they've been through, the entire curriculum and that they can be an architect, then you say, how long have you been an architect? And if they say, well, No, they need to have hands-on experience. Those would be a few things to share.
And we did find that with Tatiana's team, because they had managed another repository and they were actually fairly mature with their automation, that it was an easier ramp for them. So the technology piece, I don't think was as, I don't know, it wasn't such a barrier for that side of things. Plus, they're also responsible for, 100% responsible for if there's problems with the quality. They're the first line of defense. They have the on-call system that they actually manage as well. So, yeah, they tended to come up.
Yeah, I would say like my lesson learned and advice here is that when you're trying to build something from scratch in a testing automation perspective, you want to have people that understand what they're doing and they're not going to just try to automate the manual test cases.
Right.
They have to build an automation framework.
I like to call that object-oriented programming for testing.
Yes. We like that term too. Okay. So, pretty good. I think we have time for some audience questions. If we can. And Raj has a question up front.
Thank you. This was great. Hearing from three experts, and so obviously, three big companies, and you rolled out the product enterprise-wide, and three companies that are not technology companies. So my question is, as you rolled out Tosca enterprise-wide, I'm sure you came across some people that don't want to use it, that have other opinions, that didn't cooperate, maybe open source tools or other tools. As a change agent, how did you convert them? Or how did you work with them?
Yeah.
No.
Move to what will work for you.
There were a number of people that, in particular, the developers wanted to continue to use Selenium. Okay, fine. I'm not going to argue with you. I just, fine, go on about your business. Now, what happened in the end is that all of that went into production, and then it all broke. And after it was in production, this is in the old time, we've got the developers and the project people here, and then the support people here. The support people came over and said, I need some automation. And so we ended up redoing everything in Tosca. And I have used that example time and time again with, if you've got Selenium, there's a place for it, okay? We know where it works well. But if you want to give the business the power over their automations, you better be talking to people that are using a model-based tool. So I have not won every battle, not at all, but I've ignored them.
I don't really have a question, just a compliment. I just wanted to say that a lot of people get on stage and talk about DevOps being about people, and it's not about technology, and it's about people. And you can kind of say that one sentence and look like a hero for saying that sometimes. But to have three people so clearly believe that and to have examples of putting it into practice is not something you get on stage a lot at a technology conference. So way to go, all three of y'all.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Actually, to that point, Noel, it has been very easy to work with every single one of these deployments. You've made the environments very fun and supportive. My teams travel a lot. It's hard to be away from home as much as we are, but everybody that we've been on site with has welcomed us and has shown us around and has taken us out for some of the best meals we've ever eaten. So it's been an amazing experience. And I just want to take a second to actually recognize the teams that we work most closely with. From ExxonMobil, we have, Rob, do you have a question?
I do. My question is specifically to Anne.
Okay.
Why puzzles?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because it's like testing, okay? There's lots of different ways you might be able to put the pieces together, but there's typically one way it goes, okay? And when you look at testing, testing is a puzzle. It's about asking the right questions, okay? And puzzles are about solving it, okay? And that's what we do. We solve the puzzle, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's an important feature of our war room at Tyson, and it's my favorite carryover tradition that we've taken from ExxonMobil. So we're well on our path. Anybody else? Okay, so I think that's it. Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay.